Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, April 24th, 2025. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. This week, we head to my hometown of Hot Springs, Arkansas for the 5th annual American Craft Sake Festival. It's the second year in a row that rapidly growing origami sake of Hot Springs has hosted the event. If you want to support us financially, check out patreon.com/basicbrewing, and many thanks to everybody who's helping out in that way. If you go to patreon.com/basicbrewing, you can see a long list of stuff that you can access if you sign up as a supporter. And many thanks to the new Patreon subscribers who are signing up every week. Your help is very much appreciated. Financial supporters will be seeing a special bonus episode this week, since it will likely be a while until Steve and I can get together to sample our next round of homebrews and shoot a video. I wanted to give our financial supporters a little treat. So we shot an episode where we made simple syrups with lemon, woodruff, and saffron. We also made cocktails with said ingredients. Participants in this past year's disaster show will also get this bonus episode that I'm not gonna release to the general public. Well, general public hasn't put it out on an album in a very long time anyway, so that was a fun time. And the syrups came out really tasty. I appreciate y'all letting me take this past week off. Not like you had a choice, but thanks for your patience. We were able to make a lot of headway on our family project, so we used the time very well. Let's take a look into the mailbag, shall we? Listener Donald from Colorado writes in after hearing Chris Colby and me talk about springtime beers. Donald says, I had a recipe idea while listening to your episode with Chris Colby. He mentioned having an ungodly amount of tomatoes, a situation I found myself in last year. I decided to make some tomato wine, which the internet told me would be very similar to white wine, and surprisingly ended up being the case. If you steam juiced a bunch of tomatoes, made a strong pale saison, as described later in the episode, and added the tomato juice post-boil to dilute the wort to the strength that you want, then you could basically make a grape ale using tomatoes instead of grapes. Well, thanks, Donald. I appreciate that. That sounds like a lot of fun. It reminds me way back when Steve and I brewed a beer using watermelon juice as the entire brewing liquid. It turned out surprisingly un-watermelon-y. I got some nice emails following my conversation with Alan de Burton up in Canada. Listener David from New Zealand wrote in and said, I, too, am a fan of small induction burners, although here in New Zealand the power supply is 240 volts, which delivers a bit more power. I haven't had any problems with scorching, but then I'm old school and I stir regularly out of habit. However, I must mention a great advantage. The ceramic top is easy to clean, and in fact, you can put a paper towel on the surface, including under the pot, while in use to catch splashes. It won't burn and doesn't affect the heating. Several times I've been distracted and faced an overflow. First, turn it off, then wipe it up. Try that on a hot plate or a gas ring. Since the second time, I now put the burner on a cardboard tray to spare the bench. Well, thanks, David. So it is handy, sort of a belt and suspenders approach with the paper towel and the box. Listener Bill from Chesterville, Ontario, wrote in with a bunch of good information about maple syrup. Bill says it's important to think of maple syrup like any other agricultural crop that processes a plant-based product. People should think of maple syrup in the same way you think of wine. You can grow the same grapes in different regions, and each of those regions have a terroir that imparts a certain amount of color and flavor difference depending on the type of maple tree, soil conditions, climate, and seasonal conditions. Each of those put variability into the attributes of the sap produced by the maple tree for things like sugar content, minerality, volume, etc. As an example, the sugar content of the sap can vary from 1.5 bricks, or percentage of sugar, to almost 4 bricks, depending on the type of tree, age, growing environment, and period within the growing season. Bill says, then there is the process of taking the raw sap, collecting it, storing it, concentrating it, boiling it, filtering it, and bottling it so that it can have different effects on the color and taste. Bill says maple syrup must be 66 bricks to be considered maple syrup. At 66 bricks, the maple syrup is shelf-stable, similar to honey. If the bricks are too low, it may spoil. If it's too high, it will crystallize. The band is narrow and should be within 2 bricks, plus or minus. Sap can be concentrated using reverse osmosis technology, which some producers will use to concentrate the sap up to 10 bricks and maybe as high as 25 bricks in some industrial production systems. The remainder of the water removal needs to be done with boiling or cooking. Much like brewing, maple syrup relies on the Maillard reaction to provide color and flavor in the end product. In the podcast, there seemed to be some confusion about how maple syrup is graded. Maple syrup is graded based on light transmittal as light, amber, dark, and extra dark. All have the same sugar content, 66 bricks, but each have a different flavor and color profile. That was a surprise to me. I hope that helps with understanding the differences in maple syrup. Certainly did. Thanks, Bill, very much. I'm going to be brewing with maple syrup probably this weekend. I'm planning to brew my Canada-inspired starter lager and put some maple syrup into the fermenter. I'm going to ferment with L51 Never, the Canadian lager strain, the first of 3 lager strains introduced from our friends and sponsors at Imperial Yeast. 3 lager strains from 3 different continents. From North America and Never from Canada, we head to Asia with L55 Kanpai, the Japanese lager yeast. And now, from Europe, drumroll, L29 Looker, the yeast that will give you a classic Southern Czech lager profile. L29 Looker is said to provide excellent clarity and high flocculation. It's smooth and balanced with a crisp finish, perfect for pilsners and amber lagers. Imperial L29 Looker helps you dial in that timeless Czech-style taste. I'm really looking forward to brewing something clean and drinkable for summer with Imperial Looker. You know we love Imperial yeast with 200 billion cells in each easy-to-open package. My stir plate is usually dusty because I don't use it anymore to make starters for moderate gravity 5-gallon batches. And my airlocks are usually bubbling before bedtime. Ask your local homebrew store about L51 Never, L55 Kampai, and L29 Looker, the triad of new lager strains from Imperial Yeast. And check out all the dependable deliciousness at imperialyeast.com. That's imperialyeast.com. Okay, let's head to my hometown to talk sake at the American Craft Sake Festival. Ben Bell, here we are again at and help me get it right, the Sake Brewers Association of North America Sake Festival, right?
Okay, that's pretty close. Now, this is put on by the Sake Brewers Association of North America. We do call this the American Craft Sake Festival. So, yeah, so close.
I was darn close. I got the organization right, though.
That's right. Pretty good. So, and we do, of course, focus on craft sakes from the U.S. I'm going to say North America, kind of as a whole. A lot of people don't know there are craft sake breweries in Canada. There's one in Mexico, and which uses Arkansas-grown sake rice, by the way. And yeah, here we are pouring some new and old things.
Now, this is a nationwide thing, and here it is in Hot Springs, Arkansas, for the second year in a row. Is this a fluke, or is this going to be the semi-permanent home, or?
Okay, so I will say we are super proud to host this for the second year in a row. What will happen in the future, we will see. Of course, it's a wide world of sake. Hot Springs is a great natural resort town, and I think it's a great town for events. So we'll see. It would be great for this to be kind of like a natural home for the event, but yeah, well, I'll leave that for next year.
Well, it's good for me. It's got my vote. So how many sake breweries are represented here today?
Let's see. I think we have about 12 to 15 sake breweries total, something like that. Not quite as many as last year, but still a very good variety of sake breweries from all over the U.S. and at least one sake that is brewed overseas in Japan. Yeah.
And this is last year we had kind of you were kind enough and had the time to walk us around last year, and there was a variety of sakes. I assume we're seeing that this year as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really do feel like the depth and breadth of sake that was here last year still well represented. There's so many styles of sake that you can make, and I'm very happy to say that even within the United States, there's still no real like American style. Some people want to make a style that is very umami, savory forward. Some people want to make a style that is maybe more like the style that we want to make, which is more fruity. And I love fruit. I love fruity notes. I love sweetness acid balance, which means some sweetness is there. Some people want to make a bone dry sake. All of these things are happening in the U.S., and really the permutations of that are endless. So, yeah, there's a lot of styles going on.
So I assume they all have something in common in that they all start with rice, they all start with koji, and the brewing process is initially the same?
Yeah, that's right. So, of course, the fundamentals of making craft sake, you're essentially using rice and water. To make your koji, the malted rice, you are sprinkling the koji mold spores onto fresh steamed rice, growing that for 48 hours. That's turning your starch into fermentable sugar. I will say for a lot of folks that don't know about koji, it is also what I would call the umami step. And that is where the proteins in the rice are being broken down into savory amino acids. And that savory component is kind of the bedrock of sake, whether people can taste it or not. And I'd say the reason why you might not taste it is, especially for a sake that's fruit forward or has some sweetness, your tongue is more sensitive to sweetness, salty, sour, bitter, the things that we know from the tongue flavor map. And then also fruity notes really register a lot, in your sensory perception. Umami is really kind of this underlying thing, but we know this from, grilled meats, stewed vegetables. Umami/savory is in a lot of things that we eat. We may not associate that with things that we drink so much, but it's absolutely in sake.
And umami was fairly recently just not discovered, but identified and added to the basic list.
So when I was in school, X number of years ago, we would see...
Mine is like X times 2, so...
Exactly. This is becoming a good algebra problem for somebody. So, you'd see that tongue flavor map, and all it would say is sweet, salty, sour, bitter. But there was no umami/savory on that map, and a Japanese scientist in the 80s proposed that your tongue can absolutely taste umami, and he showed both what the flavor is, the chemical, which is glutamic acid, and where the receptors are on your tongue, which is actually, they're all over your tongue, so it's not a specified region like the other flavors. And believe it or not, the receptors are modified neurons. It's I know that's getting a little like biology, out there, but it's really interesting how that flavor is different and it's received differently on the tongue.
Kind of like capsaicin fires off different, not taste buds, but other, I think they're even subcutaneous. They're under the skin. So it's still it's a flavor, but it's coming from a different place.
Ooh, I would love for someone who works in food science and does like someone who really spans that biology to food science line to really break down what those differences are. I will say like umami absolutely is a flavor, and it doesn't seem to be the regular taste buds that we think of. But of course, we know savory from so many things. It just takes a higher concentration to register, and I think that's why in the Western world, it hasn't been on a lot of people's radar for things your tongue can taste. But in growing up in Japan, that word umami is used a lot, and I think from an early age, children are raised to spot it as a flavor very young, and then let's say for me and for a lot of folks in the U.S., you have to learn to pick out, let's say, umami/savory in a beverage like sake. It really takes some tasting practice to get to it beneath the sweetness, beneath the fruit. But it's definitely there.
This is a fun little sidetrack that I had no idea we were going to go on. This is great. I'm almost finished with my sample here. This is something very new and different.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe by the time your listeners get to listen to this, we will have launched the first ever sake seltzer in the United States. It is called Snow Monkey. So, of course, we are Origami Sake, but we have a new brand coming out called Snow Monkey. It is a sake-based seltzer, 4 different flavors. We're doing a few combinations of things. To me, it is probably the cleanest tasting, most delicious seltzer that I have had, and I'm not a big seltzer drinker, but this is absolutely one that I would enjoy on my back porch, especially in the very hot southern summers that we have here.
Which one am I tasting?
Oh, we're having the yuzu hibiscus right now, which is interesting. I love yuzu as a citrus. Hibiscus is interesting because that is a floral flavor, and I will say people have different responses to floral. Some people enjoy it, but some people do not register that as a thing that they normally, drink. They'll associate floral with like potpourri or, something along those lines. But I think if you do a little bit of floral just right, it really can be a delicious mix, and hibiscus is quite nice.
Yeah, this is, and regular listeners are gonna they'll say the term with me as I say it, but most seltzers out there, White Claw and the like, not to throw them under the bus, but there you go, under the bus you go, White Claw. I get this kind of artificial fruit flavor that I like to call urinal cake. But because, those discs that you find in a urinal, because it's that artificial smell of fruit that to me it translates in, that's what it translates onto my tongue. This is not like that at all. There's no lingering artificial type aftertaste. And I'm not saying that just because you're a co-founder of the company and we're standing right here in your booth, but I would drink can after can of this. Now, what is a sake-based hard seltzer? How do you make this?
Sure. I mean, honestly, the way you make this, I think, is not going to be a big surprise, but it's cool to still go through the process. So, of course, the base is sake, and when you're starting with sake, you're starting with an ABV of, let's say, about 15%, and we're going to dilute. We're going to add some water. We're going to add some very concentrated flavors, and the flavors it just depends on the mix. Past that, we're going to add some sweetener. So our sweetener is part sugar and then a little bit of stevia as well. So if this is really coming across as very clean and you're not getting a big artificial taste from it, to me that's a credit to that balance that we struck there. I will give you one thing that I didn't think about that I think is a really critical part to this tasting like good, lush, delicious fruit. And you wouldn't think about it, but I think it's going to make sense when I say it. Adding a little salt.
Of course.
Yeah, it's really crucial. Of course, this exists in beer as well. When we were doing sample tastings, lower salt really was just duller flavors. And when we did the samples we were given with a little bit more salt, everything just started popping a lot more. And I felt like, that's an interesting, little recipe tweak that really made a big difference.
Yeah, salt is a flavor enhancer, and that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, exactly. So I think people don't maybe understand salt's true nature as a flavor enhancer and think of it as a flavor in and of itself, and that's true when it gets to a high enough concentration, and then it becomes the flavor of salty. But honestly, I think in most things, if it actually tastes salty, you've probably gone too far with it. So you want to just bring out the flavors, let it do that, stop there. Yeah.
Well, this is delicious. And so is this going to be distributed wherever your other sakes are distributed as well? Because it's been a big year for you guys. I follow you on the socials, and it seems like every week there's another milestone that you've reached. There's another place that you're going. You're recognized in another publication or by an organization. Kind of encapsulate what's been going on in the past 12 months.
Oh, my goodness. I feel out of breath just thinking about how fast we've been going. You talk about the last 12 months. Of course, it's been a year since we've talked, and our production has scaled up considerably. I think 1 year ago, maybe we were selling in 5 states, something along those lines. We are over 20 states.
Wow.
And by the end of this year, we're going to be in about 35 states.
Wow.
Like so, that rise is, I'm going to say, meteoric. And for a young company, we've only been selling for a year and a half. So it's been a fast climb. I will say I did try on the technique, skill side, quality side to get us in as good a position as we could possibly be, getting craft advice from the sake brewery that I trained at in Japan. Nambu Bijin, they really helped us so much to get our quality up very fast. and then having excellent crew like Justin Potts, our head brewer, who trained in Japan at the same time I was training in Japan, and we didn't know each other back then, but he's been such an amazing addition to our crew. He's a real MVP for what we're doing right now. You set yourself up for, you have good stuff. Now you have to scale, which is its own challenge. And, so Origami Sake itself is growing, and now Snow Monkey is launching. So, yes, the growth, amazing, insane. I don't know, it's all the things. It's all the emotions. But where can people expect to see Snow Monkey? We're going to have a few test markets to start with, and we're going to test the water, see how how things are going, and then the goal is to just really expand it out from there and expand it out quickly. So I dare say it may expand even faster than Origami Sake. So I don't know, we'll see. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing, and it is. I mean, it has to be kind of scary because rapid growth, if you're not ready for it, especially on the production side. You don't want to compromise any of the quality that you've built up, any of the standards that you've established, and you don't want to get greedy, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's right. So I think there's several phrases along those lines. You don't want to get over your skis or something like that, right? So we have a good name, we have a good reputation. I would certainly like to keep it that way. I'm happy to say, this is just an extra bit of news, I was just in New York where I used to live and I used to sell sake, brought origami, our Arkansas, homemade product, up to some of the best restaurants and best sake bars in New York, and we've already launched in New York, got some yeses from some Michelin-starred restaurants in New York City, and at the end of the day, me and Sam Barrickman, who represents us in New York, we ended our day at a place called Accidental Bar in New York. And for anyone who wants to try great sake, I recommend this bar so highly. It's my probably top 2 favorite sake bars in New York. When we got there, they had just received their first shipment of origami sake. So it just felt like a dream, It's just like we've been hustling all over the city the whole time. Sat down, about to relax, and then we see like our bottles, just being put back on the back bar, and of course Sam got to sit down and say, a glass of origami sake, please, so that was great. Yeah.
Excellent. That's so wonderful. I mean, we could talk for half an hour, just us, but there's other people on the other side of this tent here that I want to get to know. But cheers to you. Congratulations on all the success, and can't wait to see what the next year has in store for you.
Indeed. Cheers, and always a pleasure talking.
Thanks, Ben. Tell me who you are and where you're from.
My name is Mark Zangarrett. I'm originally from Scotland, but I've come today from California, where I'm based in Folsom with Gekkeikan Sake USA.
And what am I tasting?
You're tasting Black and Gold, one of the best-selling premium sakes in the whole United States.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And tell me about my palate is not adjusted. I'm more of a craft beer guy and a home brewer. So what notes am I to look for?
Definitely on the nose, you'll get some like banana, a bit of melon. That's certainly from one of a very representative kind of aroma compound from sake. We really like it. On the palate, it's going to be very balanced, very smooth, lots of umami, and a really nice crisp finish.
It's delicious. It's what is the ABV?
14.6, so just a little stronger than your average wine.
Wow, you wouldn't be able to tell it.
It drinks real smooth. It goes down real easy.
Yeah, I try to avoid the word smooth because it's so overused, but it's not as useful as some others. But again, my palate is not attuned to sake. There is a fruity component. I am now getting the banana. Is that yeast driven?
It's all yeast driven, yeah. So a lot of people think we really dial up the aroma production on our yeasts. People think that we add flavors, but it's absolutely not. It's all natural. It all comes from the yeasts. We use all our own in-house yeasts that we breed with our own yeast breeding programs and things. So we can get some really cool, unique flavors and aroma profiles from our sakes, yeah.
So how is sake doing as a category in the country?
Sake is on the up and up. I mean, you got to look everywhere. the whole alcohol industry is having a bit of a tough time the past couple of years, but sake is outperforming everything. It's one of the only sectors that's growing. And so we're really happy, we're really positive about all the changes that are happening, all the consumer interest. People love to know about Japan, Japanese culture, Japanese food, and sake is really enjoying some of that time in the spotlight as well.
And you've got some myths or some preconceptions to deal with, don't you?
Yes, I think one of the biggest questions we always get is, wait, I thought all sake had to be drunk hot. And not true, but there's a lot of good sake out there that is warm. And I think a lot of people think that, warm sake must be cheap bad sake, and cheap bad sake must be served warm. Vice versa, if it's good sake, it must be chilled. If it's chilled, it's good sake. It's not entirely true, and this black and gold sake that you're drinking right now is a perfect example of it. It's beautiful room temperature, chilled, and warm. We entered it into the Japanese warm sake contest last year, where it won grand gold.
Oh, wow! Congratulations!
Thank you very much. Yeah, the only sake out of outside of Japan to get grand gold. The only other sake to get anything outside of Japan was our traditional regular Junmai sake. So we're really happy about that.
Wow! Can I try one more sample?
Of course, yeah. Let's go with this haiku sake. This is probably my favorite one that we have tonight. Very tropical, juicy, very refreshing sake.
Wow! Well, the nose is quite strong on this.
Yeah, so you'll get some maybe pineapple, pear on there, quite bright and tropical, and then lots of acidity, very refreshing, really good for sitting in your backyard on a hot summer evening.
Wow! And that's all yeast driven.
That's all yeast driven, yeah. So again, we use all our own in-house yeasts.
I get a little cinnamon. Whoa! I get a little cinnamon on. I swear I've only had 2 samples, but I get a little cinnamon on the end of the tongue.
So this is it's a sake that's only pasteurized once, and so it changes a little faster. And then what we found is that this sake actually really starts to shine after about 6 months after bottling, where it develops all these kind of interesting nutty, spicy notes that I really like personally. So that's what you're getting there.
Well, it's great. It's wonderful. Congratulations on your success, and keep it up.
Thank you very much indeed.
Okay, tell me who you are and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. My name's Adam Bojeri. I'm a master sake sommelier. I have kind of 2 sides to my life. I've on an education side. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'm launching the world's first self-paced sake certification program. First platform, so it's a full-blown website technology I built. We'll be able to use it for brand trainings, all sorts of stuff. But right now, you can get your sake certifications, everything you need there. It's called Sake U. On the other side of it is my personal brand, the Sake Som. That's kind of my consulting brokerage side. So I am more and more every day, apparently, becoming a sake sales and marketing broker. So brands can kind of reach out. The short version is when a brand needs to launch a new market or reach somewhere new, it's not worth investing your own sales team in, but you also want to make sure you have some presence there. Distributors are big, they're busy. So I kind of have been slowly becoming the guy to talk to when you want to launch a new market. Because of the school and the alumni associations and everything, I got a list of sommeliers around the country and around the world. So people say, hey, I'm going to launch in Denver, let's say, where I'm at these days, and I'll help set up venues, events, sommeliers, get them all connected, and I kind of, whatever we can do to get people to keep drinking sake.
So you saw a niche.
I fell backward into a niche thanks to COVID, actually.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Thanks, COVID.
Yeah, exactly. I was one of the lucky ones who, I was running around the block a few times, like the dog that needed to be walked, and needed a hobby. And so I decided it was time to pick up something new. I've always loved sake, so it was kind of a no-brainer, and then fell in love. Ended up taking every certification out there pretty much. I think between 2020 and 2023, I took 7 to 9 certifications. Got my Master Som in October of 23, so less than 3 years. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Cicerone program for beer? So are you trying to establish kind of a Cicerone
sommelier kind of a thing for sake?
So it actually already exists. So we use the word sommelier because obviously it's more accessible in America. Just like Cicerone, you'll hear they say beer sommelier sometimes like that. So on the Japanese side, it's actually called a kiki sakeshi. So there is a full thing already out there for it. But the short version is there's 3 major boards in the world. One of them's out of Japan, 2 are a little more international. So WSET, they use levels, so it's at level 3. The SSA has the actual sake sommelier trademark, and then SSI, the board out of Japan, calls it a kiki sakeshi. But again, you know, not a word everyone's familiar with. Even within Japan, people kind of look at me and go, nani? Like, you know, yeah.
So what is the state? I'm asking several people this, but what is the state of sake in the United States?
Yeah, so I mean, I've got a pretty good overview of it all. You know, I'm not deep into sales and marketing. I'm kind of dabbling enough of everything. I kind of tell you a good holistic overview. So obviously, like every alcohol, things are a little down just because of generational shifts, market stuff. Obviously, we haven't seen it yet, but the tariffs are going to, you know, play their own song and dance coming up here. But for the most part, sake is booming. I mean, that's the takeaway. Is of any alcohol at all, and I forget the numbers, so I'm not going to pretend to quote them. But it's something like it used to be 300% year over year with the imports. I mean, it's a massive growth. Now, of course, that covers everything from the main producers like Gekkeikan, who have breweries in the U.S., all the way down to these kind of small craft brewers, or even, you know, craft brewers in Japan that get kind of hand imported. And then again, within that, like with everything we've seen, there's the premiumization kind of flow going on where the big guys certainly aren't booming as much as the little guys are, you know. But I mean, even on the U.S. side of it, when I started 2020, I think there was maybe 3 or 4 brewery licenses. I think we're up to 20-something now in the U.S. Yeah, so it's pretty incredible how much it's blowing up. And I mean, imports, so in Japan, sake is kind of dying, kind of a mix of government lack of intervention and just aging out. So, for example, sake is kind of seen as like brandy almost. So it's something my grandpa drank. It's not something I'm interested in. Nowadays, it's beer and wine, and whiskey's, of course, the hot thing. So the Japanese government's starting to put some money into changing that, but that's a slow-moving process. So in the meantime, some massive amount of sake is getting exported. So U.S. and China are 2 of the biggest markets. Europe usually comes in number 3 there. So production is down, exports are up, and then domestic production in the U.S. is up. So it's this kind of complicated web of sake is, at the end of the day, a success story. But unfortunately in Japan, it's a dying culture. So we have this balance of how do we make sure we grow here in the States, but also responsibly backtrack that to make sure that the Japanese culture where this all began is still going to be able to thrive and grow.
It'd be interesting if the increased popularity of sake in the United States kind of boomerangs back to Japan and reignites some excitement back over there.
Yeah, and I mean, you're almost even seeing some of that already, again, on a very individualistic basis, but looking at certain brands, Heaven Sake is a client of mine, so they're a good example I'll use. It's a Japanese sake that we actually export out. They're all kind of custom blends, but now we are launching back in Japan. That's our newest market. And I know there are a couple sake that are not made in Japan that they have now started importing to Japan. So you have this kind of, again, that kind of boomerang effect where there are certain brands who are distinctly not Japanese, which is usually not the easiest thing to do if you want to get into Japanese culture. But now they're having this kind of awakening where we have these non-Japanese brands going back into Japan. And so definitely when you see enthusiasts in Tokyo and stuff, they are not even looking for Japanese sake necessarily. They're looking for stuff out of America. Yeah, or stuff like, I mean, even the things that we do in the industry are so unique. The Japanese, again, having that tradition, aren't so keen to change that much or aren't very agile with it. Heaven Sake, again, an example, Noguchi-san, Noguchi Brewery. He famously has never really done a reserve release or anything like that. The short version is we kind of had impressed him with what we're doing, and he gave us some of his private reserve to blend. So Heaven Sake's newest release, they're calling Prestige, I believe, but it's a blend of Noguchi that has never been done by Noguchi ever. So you have this global demand because people see Noguchi Reserve, and this is a first in or out of Japan. So you have these kind of singular moments. The market's not quite doing it as a whole, but there's some really cool little stories out there that are really showing that boomerang effect you're talking about.
I have so much to learn.
I have a lot to teach, and please, if you can't tell by now, I'm sure I'm taking up 90% of the talking time. So
no, but that makes my job easy. So
no, absolutely. So yeah, of course, anytime, and I'll give you my card. But if you have any questions ever, if you want to do something over Zoom, I'm happy to answer however I can. This has become a lifelong obsession for me. So
good luck. Thanks, Adam.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for grabbing me.
I'm Steve Volstak. I'm the president of Sake One out of Portland, Oregon.
Years ago, my buddy Andy and I toured your facility and did a video podcast about it. And I think it was like a 2-episode tour. We were given, I can't remember her name, but she gave us a tour of the brewery. And then afterwards gave us a real education on sake. And I'd had no idea of the depth and breadth of the product. And she really gave us a good education of all the things that sake could be. And so, so unbeknownst to you, you played a pivotal role in my sake education.
Well, I'm glad that we had a role in that. I think the fact that Sake One is America's oldest craft sake brewery. We started brewing in 1997. So we've been making sake outside of Portland going on 28 years. So we have to educate people about it because Americans really don't know much about sake in general. If they do, they think, oh, I only have sake with Japanese food. And today we tell people, hey, we got sakes that go good with fried chicken, with barbecue, with pizza, you name it. So it's a universal beverage that we're trying to get people to understand better.
Now you're established, even though your company is in the tradition of sake young. What do you think of all these young upstarts here in the country?
Hey, I think it's great. I mean, I'm old enough to follow the craft beer revolution in America to see how the effect of craft brewers did on consumption of smaller production beer rather than just the big guys. So I think it helps spread the amount of people that are talking about sake on a regular basis, introducing people in their areas to it because, like I said, I'll give you just an example. When we started in 1997, I think Oregon was probably like any other state in terms of sake consumption. Today, 28 years later, Oregon is the leading per capita consumer of sake in America. So we've had a little bit to do with introducing people to sake and showing them what a great versatile beverage it is.
Well, what I'm drinking is delicious. Tell me about it.
I'm pouring you a very limited edition sake we pour today called Nagi Nata. This is a Junmai Daiginjo. What's unique about this is the one sake we make currently that's made from Arkansas-grown rice, made by the Isbell Farms here in Arkansas. And we had to bring it here because, of course,
you brought it back home.
We brought the sake back home. Yeah. No, we love the Isbell family. They're great people, great rice growers, and I know we're going to be buying a lot of rice from them in the future.
Excellent.
Sake, yeah.
I'm an Arkansas native, so I have a soft place in my heart for anything grown in the state.
Good.
This is now my palate, I tell everybody my palate is tuned to beer, so maybe my descriptors aren't, I don't know what I'm tasting a lot with wine and sake, but it's very complex. There's certainly floral notes. It's not too fruity. It's fairly dry. It's a very sophisticated beverage.
Well, I think within the category, you can now find sakes in a broad range of styles, from very crisp and very dry, all the way to sakes with more umami, more body and richness, to sweeter sakes, cloudy sakes, sparkling sakes. So there's a broad range. So our company, we try to make sakes that appeal to the American consumer. And what I mean by that is Americans are used to kind of bigger, bolder flavors in their foods. So we want to make sakes that can pair well with those types of cuisines.
But I guess this specifically, this one is very complex to me. It seems very sophisticated, not unapproachable. It's very drinkable, but on my palate, it seems like it's something special.
Well, we only make the naginata like twice a year in very small batches, so we only pasteurize it once to keep kind of that really clean, fresh, vibrant character to it. So that combined with just the natural richness of the Daiginjo style, I think it's been a real favorite here at the table today at the event.
Does the Arkansas rice or the varieties of rice come in that you tried from Isabel Farms? Does that bring a character that you're not seeing in rice that you've gotten from other places?
Well, the problem we have, not a problem, the reality is this rice is called Yamada Nishiki, which is a Japanese sake rice. It's only grown, I think, in one other place in America. So when we make sake, we generally make it out of table rice. Mostly from California because we're in Oregon. So the Cal Rose variety is a table rice variety. So that's basically what we have to make sake with. But it makes great sake. And the talents of our sake brewer really come out when we ask him to make different styles to complement different types of food, for example.
Oh yeah, what you produce is delicious. So, so you're doing a good job. Whatever.
Oh, thank you.
I've been doing this podcast for 20 years, and I've seen the arc of craft beer in the country, and to me, it's exciting to see another category kind of catch interest and catch some enthusiasm. To me, I feel like we're on the cusp of seeing the start of something new in sake, and that feels like that this is a new chapter.
Well, I think sake has a great appeal, particularly to younger consumers, because one, it's probably unlikely that their parents drank sake. A lot of Americans don't want to drink what their parents drank, and I think because it's really one of the purest forms of alcohol you can consume, because all it's made of is four ingredients: water, rice, yeast, and the koji spore. And so it makes a very clean drinking beverage. It complements any type of food because of its low acidity and the umami factor that sake has. That kind of, it just pairs well with, pizza with mushrooms, tomatoes, pasta, that kind of thing. So, as you can tell, I've experimented a little bit with sake in my 16 years with Sake One, but it's been a great experience, and I love educating people on sake and show them what it can be. Not just something hot that you drink out of little cups in a Japanese restaurant.
And we're learning.
We are learning always, for sure.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Hey, my pleasure. Come by.
That was a lot of fun. By the way, you can find our tour of Sake One in the archives and on YouTube. That was way back in November of 2009. And thanks to our tour guide, Jennifer Brownstein, for being such a great host. And thanks again to Origami Sake in Hot Springs for hosting us at the festival this year. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say howdy, write to james@basicbrewing.com, or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com, and please don't forget to tell us where you're from. Check out our mobile-friendly shop at basicbrewingshop.com. Thanks to everybody supporting us through our Patreon page. Special goodies coming your way. Check that out at patreon.com/basicbrewing. It's all until next time. Till then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dodson. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. In the meantime, stay well and stay tuned. So long.